Captain Elias Ward stepped carefully over the jagged rocks of Leora 9, his boots crunching softly against the glittering mineral dust that covered the surface. The sun here was pale, a dim orange sphere hanging low in the sky, casting long shadows across the uneven terrain. He adjusted his helmet visor and scanned the horizon. The planet was beautiful in a strange, alien way, but it carried a quiet danger in its silence. Humans had only recently begun to settle on Leora 9, and the surveys they carried out often revealed surprises, some harmless, some deadly. Elias had always been cautious, disciplined, trained to expect the unexpected, but even he could not have anticipated what awaited him that day. He paused, letting his gaze sweep over the glowing forest that lined the edge of a valley. The trees shimmered faintly, their leaves translucent and pulsing with light like veins of energy. He checked the readings on his handheld scanner. Life forms were abundant, but unusual. None of the sensors could classify many of them. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. Leora 9 had a way of making even the most experienced explorers feel small, insignificant, and uneasy. "Captain, are you sure we should go further?" Lieutenant Mara Singh's voice came through his comm. She sounded nervous, though she tried to keep her tone professional. Elias looked back. Mara's eyes were wide behind her visor, reflecting the strange light of the forest. "We follow protocol," he said. "Survey the area, record all anomalies. We stick together. That's the plan." Mara nodded, though she hesitated for a moment before moving closer. The team had been exploring this part of the planet for 3 days, mapping mineral deposits and recording the unusual flora. Nothing had attacked them yet, but Elias had learned not to trust the calm of Leora 9. He took a deep breath and stepped forward again. His attention was drawn to a faint sound, almost like a sigh, carried on the thin alien wind. He frowned and paused. The sound repeated, softer this time. It seemed human. "Did you hear that?" Elias asked, stopping and turning toward Mara. She shook her head. "Hear what?" Then he heard it again, a whisper, clear this time. "Elias." He froze. His heart skipped a beat. That was impossible. None of his team had called him. There was no one else here. His comm was silent except for Mara's breathing. "Elias?" he whispered to himself, scanning the trees. The voice had come from the glowing forest. His logical mind struggled against the impossible thought forming in his head. Someone, or something, had said his name. He took a careful step forward. "Who's there?" His voice sounded loud in the quiet. He expected no reply, only the wind moving through the strange trees. Then, just beyond a ridge, he saw her. A girl, or something like a girl. Her skin glimmered like moonlight, pale but radiant, almost transparent. Her hair floated around her head as if suspended in water, catching the weak light and scattering it in tiny sparks. Her eyes glowed faintly, bright like distant stars. She was beautiful in a way that seemed both natural and impossible. She didn't speak, yet her lips moved slightly, and he could swear he heard his name again, whispered softly, gently, like a memory brushing against his mind. Elias raised a hand, trying to signal his team to stay back. Mara, seeing the figure, froze and dropped her scanner. "Stay calm," Elias said, his voice low. "She's not human. Do not approach too fast." The girl tilted her head, as if studying him or understanding him. And then, without warning, she turned and disappeared into the glowing forest, moving in a way that was silent, almost liquid, blending with the shimmer of the trees. Elias's chest tightened. His instincts screamed at him to follow, to find out who or what she was. But his training reminded him to be careful. He signaled to Mara to stay put and took out his portable scanner, adjusting it to search for heat signatures. Nothing. The girl left no trace. "She's gone," Mara said quietly, her voice trembling. "What?" What was that? Elias didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing. Nothing on Leora 9 should have been capable of whispering a human name, much less one as specific as his. And yet, the evidence of his own senses told him it had happened. He checked his equipment again, hoping some malfunction might explain it. The readings were normal. There was no energy spike, no anomaly large enough to explain the presence of an unknown life form. "She knows my name," he said finally, almost to himself. "And she knows me." Mara looked at him, her brow furrowed. "How is that possible?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but I intend to find out." For the next few hours, he and his team moved cautiously through the glowing forest, scanning for any sign of the girl. They discovered strange plants that reacted to their presence, glowing brighter as they approached, pulsing with a rhythm that almost seemed alive. The forest hummed with energy, and Elias could feel it brushing against his thoughts, subtle, like a whisper at the edge of awareness. Then, near a stream with water that shimmered like liquid crystal, he saw her again. She stood perfectly still on the far bank, staring at him. The scanner still registered nothing. She was too strange, too ethereal to register fully on human instruments. She whispered again, softly, "Elias." This time he didn't hesitate. He took a careful step forward. How do you know my name?" he asked aloud, his voice firm despite the unease in his chest. She tilted her head, eyes wide and curious. She didn't speak human words, but this time he felt something more. An understanding, a connection. Her thoughts, or something like them, brushed against his mind. Curiosity, intelligence, awareness. She had studied him, somehow, and understood him. Mara whispered from behind him, "Captain, she's watching us." Elias didn't answer. He was focused entirely on the girl. His instincts told him she was intelligent, capable of thought and communication, though not in the ways humans normally used. And yet the fact that she knew his name and seemed to know him filled him with a strange mixture of fear and wonder. He raised his hand in a non-threatening gesture. "I don't mean to hurt you," he said. His voice carried sincerity, the kind that transcended language. The girl tilted her head again, and then, in a movement so sudden it took his breath away, she vanished once more, slipping behind a tree, leaving only a ripple of light in her place. Elias took a deep breath and looked back at Mara. "We will need to follow carefully. Do not lose sight of her." For the next day they tracked the girl through the glowing forest. She led them, but never directly. She moved ahead, always watching, always just out of reach. At times, Elias felt as though she was guiding them, helping them avoid dangers, unstable ground, sharp crystalline formations, and strange predatory creatures that lurked among the trees. Through it all, he could not shake the thought that she was not just an alien. She was something more. Someone who understood humans, perhaps even better than humans understood themselves. He began to wonder if she had always been here, waiting, or if she had arrived because she knew he would come. By the evening of the second day, they reached a clearing with a natural pool that glowed faintly under the dim sun. The girl stood across the water, motionless, as if waiting. Elias stepped forward. He wanted answers. "How do you know me?" he asked again, his voice steady. "Who are you?" The girl's eyes met his, and for the first time he felt a clear sense of recognition. A thought crossed his mind that made his heart skip. She knew not only his name, but fragments of his life, his experiences, his choices. She had studied him somehow, without words, without explanation. She stepped forward slowly, but when she reached the edge of the water, she paused. Her gaze stayed on him, almost pleading, as if she wanted him to understand something beyond human comprehension. Elias swallowed hard. He wanted to step closer, to bridge the impossible distance between them. But he restrained himself. This encounter was unlike anything he had trained for, unlike anything he had faced in the army, in space, or on any world. It demanded patience, caution, and respect. He lowered his hand. "I will not harm you," he said. "I only want to understand." For a long moment, the girl did not move. Then, slowly, she whispered his name once more, the sound delicate, almost like the rustling of leaves. And then, before he could react, she vanished into the forest entirely. Elias stood at the edge of the glowing pool, staring after her. His heart was pounding, and yet he felt a strange sense of calm. He had encountered something extraordinary, something that defied explanation. He had seen intelligence, awareness, and perhaps even empathy in a form entirely alien to humans. Turning to Mara, he said, "We will need to report this, but more importantly, we will need to find her again. She knows something we must learn." Mara nodded, though her eyes were wide with wonder and fear. "Captain, what is she?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but I intend to find out. And if we are careful, we might just learn more than we ever imagined about this planet. And about ourselves." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in deep shadows. Yet the trees continued to glow faintly, as if alive. Somewhere in that shimmer, Elias felt her presence, watching, waiting, and he knew, with a certainty he could not explain, that this was only the beginning. The alien girl had whispered his name, and now he would follow hers into the unknown. The morning sun of Leora 9 filtered through the glowing leaves, casting pale green shadows across the rough ground. Captain Elias Ward woke before the rest of his team, staring at the horizon where the alien girl had disappeared the night before. The memory of her whisper haunted him. Her voice had been soft, almost fragile, yet it carried a weight that he could not explain. He felt as if she had known him in ways no human ever could. Elias dressed quickly, checked his equipment, and walked toward the edge of the glowing forest. Lieutenant Mara Singh followed silently, her face tense with both fear and curiosity. The rest of the survey team had begun their morning routines, unaware of the captain's preoccupation. "Do you think she's friendly?" Mara asked quietly as they approached the tree line. Elias paused, scanning the forest with his handheld scanner. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But whatever she is intelligent. She has a purpose, and we need to understand it before we do anything rash." The forest was alive with subtle movement. Strange plants swayed even without wind. Glowing insects flitted between leaves, leaving trails of light in their wake. Elias could feel the hum of energy in the air, a constant vibration that seemed to pulse in time with his own heartbeat. Then he saw her. She was standing near a cluster of luminous trees, her eyes fixed on him. The shimmer of her skin caught the light, making her appear almost like a vision rather than a real creature. She did not move toward him, but her presence was unmistakable. "Captain," Mara whispered. Elias stepped forward slowly. "Hello," he said. "I want to understand you. Can you show me how?" For a moment, the girl did nothing. Then, she tilted her head and something shifted. He felt it almost immediately, a wave of thought brushing against his own mind. It was not language, at least not in a way humans used words. It was a feeling, an image, a memory. Elias staggered slightly. He had not expected this. You can communicate like this?" he asked aloud, though he felt the answer in his mind before she responded. A gentle confirmation flowed into him like sunlight through water. She was intelligent. She could reach across the barrier of species to convey thought, emotion, understanding, and more astonishingly, she seemed to know things about him. Small details, childhood memories, fears, choices he had made, flashed in his mind. Elias caught his breath. How do you know these things?" he whispered. The girl stepped closer, though her movement was careful, deliberate. He could see the soft glow of energy around her hands, faint but unmistakable. And then, as if answering his question, a series of images appeared in his mind. A vision of humans leaving Earth long ago, settling on distant worlds, a small group guided by beings that looked like her. She had seen humanity's past. She had seen the choices, the struggles, the growth. And somehow, she had learned about him. Mara touched his shoulder, shaking him lightly. "Captain, are you all right?" Elias blinked and focused. "I'm fine," he said, though his mind was still reeling. "We need to follow her. She is trying to show us something." The girl led them deeper into the forest, moving with grace and speed that was almost impossible to track. Elias's team struggled to keep up, carefully stepping over roots and rocks, their scanners detecting little that could explain her presence. Hours passed. The forest seemed endless, but the girl did not tire. She paused at times, waiting for them, then moved again, guiding them toward an unknown destination. Elias noticed that the plants around them seemed to respond to her presence. Flowers turned toward her, vines retracted from her path, and even some of the strange, glowing insects seemed to follow her movements. At one point, they came to a clearing dominated by a massive crystal formation. Its surface reflected light in every color, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across the ground. The girl stood at its base, looking up at it with an expression that was almost reverent. Elias felt a strange pull in his chest, an awareness that this place was important, ancient, powerful. "Captain," Mara said softly, "what is that?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but I think she wants us to see it." He stepped closer to the crystal, scanning it with his equipment. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. Energy patterns that defied explanation, faint traces of genetic sequences, and subtle pulses of thought, almost like consciousness itself was embedded in the structure. The girl reached out her hand and touched the crystal. Images flooded Elias's mind again. He saw the girl's species, a civilization that had existed long before humans left Earth. They had explored the stars, shared knowledge, and left fragments of themselves behind on planets like Leora 9. And somehow, humans carried a memory of them in their own genetic code. Elias staggered back, overwhelmed. This is incredible," he said. "You're saying humans? We're connected to your people?" The girl nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. Another thought came to him, clearer than before. She had learned his name because she recognized the genetic memory in him. She could sense the essence of him, the pattern that tied him to the past. Mara stared at him, wide-eyed. "Captain, this changes everything. If she's right—" "Yes," Elias said, taking a deep breath. "It changes everything. And we have to be careful. Others might try to exploit this. We need to protect her, and we need to understand her purpose before anyone else interferes." The girl stepped back from the crystal, motioning for them to follow. They moved again through the forest, deeper into areas humans had not yet explored. Strange creatures watched from the shadows, predators that seemed intelligent. Not just instinct-driven, but the girl's presence kept them at bay. Elias realized she was not only communicating with humans, but with the planet itself, with life in a way he could barely comprehend. By evening, they arrived at a river that glowed with phosphorescent light. The girl paused, letting them catch up. She touched the water, and visions appeared in Elias's mind once more. Humans building colonies, exploring space, fighting among themselves. But she also showed him possibilities, what humanity could become if they learned cooperation, empathy, and understanding. Elias felt a swell of hope, mingled with fear. This girl, this being, held knowledge and power beyond anything humans had yet encountered. And yet, she did not seek to dominate or control. They had no way of knowing her motives fully, but he sensed a pure intelligence, a desire to guide rather than to conquer. Suddenly, rustling came from the far bank. Figures emerged from the shadows, other human explorers, armed and wary. They had been sent by another faction of the colony, humans who wanted to capture or exploit any alien life for research, profit, or power. "Captain Ward!" one of them shouted. "Step away from that creature!" Elias moved to stand between the girl and the intruders. "She is not yours to capture," he said firmly. "She is intelligent. She has rights. She is not an experiment." The humans hesitated. They were trained, armed, confident, but they had never encountered anything like this. The girl raised her hand, and a faint wave of energy rippled through the air. One of the humans screamed, clutching his head as visions of his own fears and regrets flashed before his eyes. He dropped to the ground, trembling. Elias felt the power of her abilities, and yet he also felt her restraint. She did not strike to harm, she only demonstrated what she could do. "Enough," Elias said, stepping forward. "Leave. Do not follow us and do not interfere. She is free. You will not take her." The humans exchanged uncertain glances and then retreated, leaving Elias and his team with the girl by the glowing river. The girl whispered his name again. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, a connection that went beyond words. He reached out gently, trying to convey trust, respect, and understanding. She responded, moving closer, letting him see her fully without fear. As night fell, Elias and his team camped near the river, keeping a watchful eye on the glowing forest. The girl stayed nearby, her presence constant, yet unobtrusive. Elias could not sleep, filled with questions and awe. Who was she really? How much did she know about humans, and why had she come to him of all people? By dawn, he had decided. He would follow her wherever she led, learn what she wanted to teach, and protect her from anyone who sought to exploit her. She had shown him glimpses of humanity's past and future, and he knew instinctively that this encounter would change everything. The girl stirred as the first light touched the river. Elias approached slowly. She looked at him, eyes glowing with a soft, steady light, and whispered his name one final time before moving forward, deeper into the forest. Elias rose, checking his equipment. "We go together," he said softly. "We will learn from you, and we will protect you." Mara joined him, her expression determined. "Captain, are you sure?" He nodded. "There is no turning back. Whatever this is, whatever she is, it is bigger than any of us, and it is our responsibility to see it through." The alien girl led them forward, her movements graceful and deliberate, and Elias felt a thrill of both fear and excitement. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing. Humanity had found a connection that went far beyond Earth, beyond colonization, beyond the limits of their own understanding, and he would follow it, wherever it led. The forest of Leora 9 was alive in ways Elias had never imagined. Every step he took seemed to hum with energy, as if the trees themselves were aware of his presence. The alien girl moved ahead of him, her form glimmering softly, leaving a trail of faint light that danced across the leaves and moss-covered ground. Elias followed closely, careful not to disturb the delicate balance around them, while Mara stayed at his side, wide-eyed and silent, absorbing everything. For hours they walked in silence, the girl guiding them through the forest without words. Elias had long ago stopped expecting normal explanations. The images she had shown him the previous day, of humanity's past, of her species' ancient civilization, of the genetic link between humans and her people, played repeatedly in his mind. He could not stop thinking about the implications. Humans were more than settlers. They were inheritors of a knowledge and potential far older than themselves. As they reached a narrow valley, the girl stopped. Elias noticed her eyes scanning the ground carefully. She raised a hand, and the forest seemed to respond. Vines retracted, rocks shifted subtly, and small creatures scuttled away. Elias realized she was not only communicating with him, but with the planet itself. Life moved for her, almost as if she were part of it. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the valley. Elias instinctively raised his arm to shield Mara, and they ducked behind a rock formation. From the shadows, figures emerged, humans, armed and determined. They were from another faction of the colony, the same group Elias had encountered near the glowing river. This time they had followed the girl, intent on capturing her. "Captain Ward!" one shouted. "Step away from the creature! You cannot interfere!" Elias stood slowly, placing himself between the girl and the humans. "She is not a tool," he called out. "She is intelligent. You will not harm her, and you will not take her." The humans hesitated, confused by Elias's courage and the girl's calm, glowing presence. She stepped forward, raising her hands slightly. A faint pulse of energy rippled through the air. One of the intruders screamed, clutching his head as visions of his own fears and regrets flashed before him. Others stumbled backward, trying to resist the sensation of being confronted not just physically, but mentally, by an intelligence they did not understand. Elias felt a mix of awe and fear. She had the power to protect herself, to defend them without causing permanent harm. Her abilities were beyond anything he had seen, and yet she restrained herself. It was not fear of humans that guided her. It was understanding, intelligence, and perhaps a desire to teach. He motioned to Mara, whispering, "We need to get her out of here. Follow me." They moved quickly, the girl leading them along a hidden path that twisted through the trees and across shallow streams. Elias marveled at how she navigated the terrain, always aware of the dangers, always calm. He realized that she was teaching him, guiding him not just to safety, but toward understanding. As they reached a small clearing, the girl paused and touched a crystal embedded in the ground. Images appeared in Elias's mind immediately. Visions of her species, the civilizations they had built, the exploration of countless worlds, and the careful seeding of intelligence in humans. She had seen their struggles, their wars, their achievements, and their failures. She had chosen to reveal herself now, to guide humans toward a path that could lead to greatness, if they were wise enough to learn. Elias staggered back, overwhelmed by the flood of knowledge. You're showing me everything?" he asked, voice trembling. The girl nodded, and the understanding came again, not in words, but in emotions and thoughts. Hope, patience, curiosity. She wanted humans to see what they could become, not through domination or fear, but through intelligence, empathy, and cooperation. Mara stepped closer, awe in her voice. "Captain, this changes everything. If what she shows is true, humanity isn't just settlers. We are inheritors of knowledge and potential far greater than we imagined." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility. "We have to protect her, and we have to learn from her. But we cannot allow anyone else to exploit this. If her abilities fall into the wrong hands, it could be disastrous." The girl's eyes glowed brighter, and Elias realized she understood his thoughts completely. She was not just communicating with him, she was reading him, learning him, judging him, and somehow she trusted him. Suddenly, a low growl came from the edge of the clearing. A large predator, a creature unlike anything humans had seen on Leora 9, emerged from the shadows. Its skin was dark and reflective, its eyes sharp and calculating. It advanced toward them, muscles rippling beneath its scaled body. Elias froze, unsure how to respond. The girl stepped forward without hesitation. She extended her hands, and a wave of energy pulsed through the clearing. The predator froze mid-step, its gaze fixed on the alien girl. Then, almost imperceptibly, it turned and slunk back into the shadows. Elias exhaled sharply, realizing that her abilities extended beyond communication with humans. She could influence other life forms as well. "Captain, how?" Mara whispered. Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but she's protecting us, and she's showing us what she can do. We have to respect that." They continued deeper into the forest, eventually reaching a plateau overlooking a valley filled with ruins. The structures were ancient, carved from stone and metal, glowing faintly in the dim light. Elias's scanner went wild, unable to classify the energy readings coming from the site. "This is her home?" Mara asked softly. Elias shook his head. "Not just her home. This is a record, a library, a memory of her civilization, and somehow it's connected to humans." The girl led them to the largest structure, a tower-like building with symbols etched into its walls. Elias felt a pull in his chest, a resonance with something deep inside him. The symbols seemed familiar, as if they were connected to human memory, though he could not understand how. She touched the symbols, and visions filled his mind again. He saw humans leaving Earth long ago, traveling to distant worlds, guided by beings like her. He saw choices, sacrifices, and struggles, and he saw possibilities, what humans could become if they learned to cooperate, to understand, to rise above fear and greed. Elias felt a surge of hope. Humanity had the potential for greatness, far beyond war, politics, or greed. And she was here to help guide them, to awaken that potential. But the moment was broken by movement at the edge of the plateau. The rival humans had followed them again, determined to capture or exploit the girl. They raised weapons, shouting and advancing. Elias realized that words alone would not stop them this time. The girl stepped forward, calm and radiant. She raised her hands, and a wave of energy swept across the plateau. One of the humans screamed, clutching his head as visions of his own mistakes and fears assaulted him. Others stumbled, some falling to the ground, paralyzed by the sheer intensity of her presence. Elias acted quickly. He grabbed Mara's arm. "We move now! Follow her path!" They ran through the ruins, the girl leading them with a precision that seemed almost instinctive. Structures shifted subtly around them, doors opening, pathways forming as if the ruins themselves recognized her presence. Elias realized that the ruins were not just structures. They were alive in some way, responding to her, aiding her. By the time they reached the edge of the plateau, the humans pursuing them had been left behind, disoriented and terrified. Elias allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. The girl had not harmed them permanently, but she had demonstrated her power clearly enough to deter further pursuit, for now. He looked at her, awe and respect filling his chest. "You are incredible," he said softly. She did not respond in words. Instead, she reached out, placing a hand on his arm. And in that moment, Elias felt a connection deeper than anything he had ever known. Memories, emotions, understanding flowed between them. He realized that she had chosen him, trusted him, and believed in him. Mara watched silently, sensing the bond forming between them. "Captain, she's showing you everything," she said softly. Elias nodded. "Yes, and it's more than knowledge. It's a responsibility. Humanity has been given a chance to understand, to rise, to learn, and she is the key." Night fell, and the alien girl led them to a sheltered area within the ruins. Elias and Mara set up their camp, keeping watch as she remained nearby, her form glowing faintly in the darkness. Elias could not sleep, his mind racing with the visions she had shown him. Humanity's past, present, and future intertwined with hers, and he felt the weight of it pressing on his shoulders. By dawn, he made a decision. They could not remain hidden forever. Others would come, seeking to exploit her abilities. They needed to understand the full extent of her knowledge, and humanity needed to be prepared to rise to the potential she had revealed. He approached her, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. "We will follow you," he said. "Teach us, guide us. But we must do it together, and we must protect you." She looked at him, her eyes glowing brighter, and for the first time, Elias felt a complete understanding between them. No words were needed. She trusted him, and he would not betray that trust. As they moved forward into the heart of the ruins, Elias realized that humanity's story was about to change forever. The alien girl had shown him not just the past, but a possible future. A future where humans could rise above fear, greed, and conflict, and reach for something greater. And he knew without a doubt that he would follow her wherever she led, facing dangers, discoveries, and challenges until the truth of humanity's potential was fully revealed. The forest pulsed around them, alive with energy, guiding them, teaching them. And the alien girl, glowing softly, whispered his name once more, a promise of knowledge, hope, and a future yet to be written. The ruins of Leora 9 stretched endlessly, carved from stone and crystal, glowing faintly under the dim light of the twin moons. Captain Elias Ward walked beside the alien girl, his boots crunching softly against the uneven ground. He had followed her deeper into the heart of her civilization's remains than any human had ventured before. Mara Singh trailed close, her eyes wide with awe, her scanner recording every detail, every pulse of energy. Elias felt a mixture of anticipation and fear. What lay ahead was unknown, and yet he trusted her. He had no choice but to trust her. She had guided them this far, showing them glimpses of humanity's past and possible future. He knew she held answers that could change everything. They entered the largest structure, a towering hall of crystal and metal. The walls shimmered with light, and symbols glowed faintly, resonating with a frequency that seemed to harmonize with Elias's heartbeat. He felt a pull toward the center of the hall, a sense of purpose that went beyond understanding. The girl stopped in the center, raising her hands. The light around her intensified, and the symbols on the walls began to move, forming patterns that Elias felt more than saw. Images appeared in his mind. Humans traveling across space, civilizations rising and falling, choices made in hope or fear, and a thread connecting them all to her people, long gone, but leaving their knowledge behind. Elias realized the truth. Humans were descendants of this ancient species. Not in the sense of blood alone, but in spirit, intellect, and potential. She had been showing him the memory embedded in humanity, the inheritance of a civilization that valued exploration, understanding, and empathy. "Captain," Mara whispered, her voice trembling, "she's showing us everything, our past, our future, our potential." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of it settle on his shoulders. "Yes, and we have a responsibility. We cannot waste this knowledge. We must understand it and use it wisely." The girl's hands moved, and suddenly Elias felt himself connected to her in a way beyond thought or speech. He could sense her intentions, her emotions, and her desire for humanity to rise above its own flaws. The visions became clearer. Humans working together, achieving incredible feats, not through war or greed, but through cooperation, intelligence, and compassion. Then a sound broke the silence, a disturbance at the entrance of the hall. Elias turned to see the rival humans, the ones who had tried to capture her before. They looked different this time, hesitant, uncertain, as if they felt the presence of the girl and the power within the ruins. "Captain Ward," one called, raising his weapon. "Step aside. That creature belongs to us." Elias stepped forward, placing himself between the intruders and the girl. "She is not yours," he said firmly. "You cannot claim her. She is intelligent, aware, and free. Leave now, or you will face consequences you cannot imagine." The humans hesitated, but then one fired a warning shot. The girl raised her hand and the light pulsed. Suddenly, images and emotions filled the minds of the intruders. Fear, regret, memories of their own mistakes, and a vision of what humanity could become if it followed the path she showed. Some dropped their weapons, overwhelmed. Others fell to their knees, trembling. Elias realized she was not harming them physically. She was teaching them, opening their minds to the possibilities they had ignored. He felt a wave of awe. Her intelligence, her restraint, and her power were beyond anything humans had ever encountered. "Enough!" Elias shouted. "Leave her in peace! You will not take her!" The remaining humans slowly backed away, eyes wide, and finally fled. The threat was gone, and the girl's calm presence returned. Elias exhaled, relief and wonder mingling in his chest. The girl stepped closer to Elias, her eyes glowing softly. She placed a hand on his arm, and he felt a surge of understanding. She had chosen him as a guide, a protector, someone who could carry her message to humanity. The connection was deep, more profound than anything Elias had known. Then she led them to the central chamber of the hall, where a massive crystalline structure pulsed with light. Elias approached cautiously. The girl touched the crystal, and the visions came again, more intense this time. He saw humans exploring distant worlds, learning, discovering, growing, not through conquest, but through empathy and knowledge. Elias realized the ultimate truth. Humanity had the potential to rise above its own limitations. They were capable of great kindness, intelligence, and cooperation. The girl's people had left a legacy for them, waiting for the right moment, the right beings, to awaken it. "Captain," Mara whispered, "we've been given a chance. Not just to survive, but to truly rise." Elias nodded. "Yes, and it is our duty to ensure we do not waste it. This knowledge, this connection, it is a responsibility we cannot ignore." The girl's eyes met his, and he felt a message without words. She had faith in humanity. She believed they could learn, change, and grow. Her whispers of his name had been more than recognition. They had been a call to action, a call for humans to embrace their potential. Elias turned to Mara. "We must take this back. We must protect her, and we must share what we've learned with the colonies in a way that honors her intentions." Mara nodded. "But, Captain, how do we do that without others trying to exploit her?" Elias thought for a moment. "We teach carefully. We lead by example. And we ensure she remains free. That her knowledge guides us rather than enslaves us." The girl stepped forward again, guiding them to a smaller chamber filled with glowing symbols and floating holographic images. Each image told a story of her civilization, their discoveries, their philosophies, their empathy, and their mistakes. She revealed the wisdom that had been left behind for humans, lessons in understanding, in patience, and in the potential for greatness. Elias absorbed every detail. He realized that humans were not alone in the universe. They had allies, guides, and a heritage that spanned eons. The girl's presence, her abilities, and her knowledge were the bridge between the past and humanity's future. As they emerged from the hall, the forest seemed to respond to their passage. Plants glowed brighter, creatures moved aside, and the air vibrated with energy. Elias felt a deep sense of connection, not just to the alien girl, but to Leora 9 itself. The planet, alive in ways humans could barely understand, seemed to acknowledge their purpose. He knew the journey ahead would be dangerous. Others would come, seeking to exploit the girl and the knowledge she carried. But Elias felt a renewed sense of determination. Humanity had been given a chance, and he would not let it slip away. That night, as they camped near the ruins, the girl whispered his name once more. Elias approached her carefully, kneeling to meet her gaze. The connection they shared was beyond language. He understood her intentions, her hopes, and her faith in humanity. "Thank you," he said softly. "We will not fail." The girl's glow pulsed gently, a sign of acknowledgement. And in that moment, Elias felt the weight of the future resting on his shoulders, but also the hope that humanity could rise to meet it. As dawn broke over the glowing forest, Elias and Mara prepared to return to the human colonies. They would carry the knowledge, the visions, and the wisdom of the alien girl back with them. But more importantly, they would carry a message. Humanity had the potential to be great, not through war or conquest, but through understanding, intelligence, and empathy. The alien girl watched them leave, her form shimmering softly in the morning light. She had fulfilled her purpose, guiding humans to a moment of realization, showing them the path they could take. And somewhere in the depths of her thoughts, she hoped they would succeed, that humanity would rise to the promise she had shown them. Elias looked back one last time. Her presence lingered in the forest, a gentle glow among the trees. He knew that this was not the end. She had given them a beginning, a chance to awaken the potential within themselves. The journey ahead would be long, filled with challenges and uncertainty. But Elias felt ready. Humanity had a guide, a teacher, and a reminder of what they could become. The alien girl had whispered his name, and through that whisper, she had opened a door to the future. He turned to Mara, determination in his eyes. "We have work to do. Humanity's story is about to change, and we will make sure it is for the better." Together they began the journey back to the colonies, carrying the light of knowledge and hope. Behind them, the alien girl remained in the forest, a silent guardian of humanity's potential. A reminder that even in the darkest corners of the universe, intelligence, empathy, and courage could guide the way. And as they walked, Elias whispered softly to himself, remembering her voice, her gentle, impossible whisper that had called him by name and changed his life, and perhaps the fate of humanity, forever.